Hi everyone, it's Wednesday the 15th of April, just giving you another update from Tallawong State School. Look, first of all, I want to clarify some of what appears to be mixed messages from different people in the media. The first thing is, it is still really important to follow the social distancing guidelines, as well as it's important that students stay at home for their learning for the first 5 weeks. There's really strong reasons for that. I know that everybody at the moment seems to be focusing on the fact that the curve is flattening, and yes, that is true. But if we take a look at countries overseas that have done well, so if we take Singapore example, which was held up as a really good example of how to deal with COVID-19, well, they relaxed slightly their restrictions, and now they've got a second wave coming through, which is now increasing, not decreasing. So in a strict environment like the island city of Singapore, if a slight relaxation of those rules has resulted in an increase, then it reinforces the need for us to stay with the current arrangement in terms of social distancing and the other restrictions which we find across our work and community at the moment. So can you please, I know when people start giving different ideas, different points of view about what's happening, I'm trying each day to give you the best advice that I can by sifting through that. And at the moment, it is simply that we cannot afford to relax now because the second wave would be a lot worse than the first wave. And I think I explained previously the reasons for that. The first wave in terms of COVID-19 was very much about people coming from overseas or off ships or whatever, and other people being in contact with them and then spreading. The second wave is when it seems to have flattened the curve, and then all of a sudden we relax and we start getting community spread, which is difficult to track and contain and test. So it is really, really important that we stick with the current precautions that we are taking. I know for many of you, there's a bit of panic and uncertainty, fear, anxiety about the fact that students will not be returning to school to start term 2. The first thing really to alleviate that is to make the distinction between homeschooling and home learning. Homeschooling is where the parent or the family takes full responsibility for the learning of their children. That means that you look after the curriculum, you're looking after assessment, you're looking after it all. Home learning is really different. Home learning is about working with teachers to support your child's learning. So the school in home learning is a partner with you. You don't do everything. You don't have to work out what curriculum, what to teach, get the units, all that sort of stuff. So that is one of the reasons why the teachers are really busy at the moment, is because they're having to sift through and provide units of work for you, which we believe we can support you to do at home, and not things which will need the teacher there to do the supervision. And also the work at school is quite different, simply because a teacher sometimes has 25 to 28 students in the classroom. And so the amount of work that they're trying to get through with all of those students is not as much as what you think it is. Some people are thinking in their heads, oh no, I've got to set aside and supervise my kid for 6 hours a day, and I've got to monitor them every so often, and they have to do this at this time, this at this time, this at that time. Look, you need to relax a little bit here. Look, in terms of routine, 2 to 3 hours of focused home learning is enough to get through these times. And I would even build that up from a smaller amount at the start of the term as we're trying to train the students to do that work at home. So I wouldn't rush in and try to do everything all at once. And at any stage, if you need some assistance, you need to contact us on our new email address, which is homelearning@tallawongss.eq.edu.au. In terms of setting up a routine, that's what I was talking about yesterday. So I've got some initial pointers. The first thing is, do not try and have an entire timetable for the whole day straight away, because then you'll get frustrated, your kids will get frustrated, and it's really unrealistic to have a timetable where you have to stick to for every half hour of the day. So the first thing is start off with some simple things like making sure that you and your kids are getting out of bed at the same time each day and going to bed at the same time each day. That is a really important part of our entire health and work balance that we need to achieve, because if we don't keep those two things in a regular routine, it upsets our body system, it hinders our capacity to work, it hinders our capacity to sleep, and it also upsets our physical body in terms of health and health-related issues. So first thing, set down a getting up time and a going to bed time. So the other thing is, in terms of going to bed at night, don't allow kids to be having phones and computers that in their bed. One of the things our brain does very well is associates things in terms of activities and thoughts. If you are doing other things like looking at electronic devices and playing games in bed and things like that, your brain doesn't associate bed with sleep. And that for young people can create a significant problem later on. So when they're going to bed, it's actually to go to sleep. Otherwise, they should be getting up out of the bed to do other activities. So getting back to talking about routine, if we're getting up in the morning, we need to start by some simple things in terms of getting up activity, so it becomes a really nice routine in the morning. So it could be giving the adults, members of the family, a hug, high-fiving your siblings, making your bed before having breakfast. So greetings, I think it's really important to start with greetings. So if you've got a pet, it might be giving your dog a pat, or picking up the cat for a while or something, and then making sure you go through that process of washing hands properly before having breakfast, making sure they brush their teeth, those sorts of things, so that there's a few things to tick off in little activities that becomes part of a routine that they do. After breakfast, it's probably a good idea to do some simple sort of exercise. So maybe just going for a walk, taking the dog for a walk, going for a run around the house, anything that you can come up with for that. 9 o'clock, we need to start thinking about getting ready for home learning. I'd start simply by reading a story, you reading a story to them, maybe getting something on YouTube where they listen to a story being read, some sort of activity which is a sit-down learning activity. It may be this week some meditation at 9 o'clock, or relax or sit on your own for a bit of peace and quiet. After doing that, it's time to be a little bit creative and say, okay, what's some activity that we can do that's a bit of fun but might involve some learning as well? So it might be, making something crafty. It might be, helping make the lunch, or doing some baking, because that involves measurement, weighing things, science, English, all that sort of stuff, reading from the packet if they're doing from a packet or a recipe or whatever. So that's a really good activity to do in the middle of the day, something creative around that where you work together on something. Then it may be, then you have lunch. After lunch, it's probably a good idea to do something like they do in Spain, have a bit of siesta. Have a bit of relax after having something to eat. And then after that, doing your last little bit of home learning. So that might be reading a bit more of what you were reading in the morning, maybe listening to the end of the story or listening to another one, maybe doing a little bit more meditation, but something which is around concentration or focus in that time between, say, 1:30 and 3 o'clock or something like that. Then in the afternoon, it's just back to normal, like playtime. I would be getting them to do some chores and things like that, so morning and afternoon, that they understand that there's some work or help around the house, because you are doing more for them at this time in terms of helping with their learning program. And then obviously preparing for dinner, some relaxation, and then bedtime. We are going to post on our Facebook page what a couple of teachers just put together in terms of a suggestion. And look, it is only a suggestion, but you can have a look at that as possibly the sort of timetable that you might look at for next week. So I wouldn't rush into that just now, but for next week, there's an example there for you. The reason we're putting that up is so to alleviate some of the anxiety you've got about how much time they need to spend at a desk. Finally, when the kids are at school, they're not just sitting at the desk the whole time. So some people think they go to school and it's 9 to 3 and they're sitting at the desk and they're working away. That's not how it works. Teachers allow them and actually arrange and plan for movement breaks. So sometimes they might go out for a game. Sometimes they'll do some exercise. They'll have a fruit break. They'll go out to lunch. So there are numerous different breaks that children have throughout the day so that they're not actually just sitting at their desk and feeling like they're jammed in there for the day. So just you need to remember that at home. And I'll finish off by just reminding the difference between homeschooling and home learning. Home learning means you're not by yourself, folks. So I'll talk to you more about that tomorrow. But yeah, look, I hope that helps. See you tomorrow.